Hey everyone, it's Karissa Dunham. I'm here on Shining Light on Minnesota. We have an awesome guest today with us, Chris Montana. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. So let's start digging in a little bit deeper. You've been in and around Minnesota for most of your life, not born here, but you moved here when you were young. Let's start off and tell everybody a little bit about the journey on how you got to where you are today.
Oh, wow. How much time do you have? I'll try to give you the I'll try to give you the readers. Yeah, so I moved I was born in Indiana. I moved when I was young, when I was about 8 years old. I was introduced to Minnesota by way of the blizzard of 91. And with my jean jacket and snow above my head. So
Yeah.
that was my introduction. I went to high school and middle school, Marcy, South. And when I left high school, I was at the U for a little while, but not that focused. But I kind of fell into politics
Nice.
and started working on some campaigns. I ended up working for an organization that since it's changed its name, Wellstone Action. But that led to working in Congress for a brief stint for Keith Ellison when he first won. I was on his campaign at his field. And then that led to law school, and that led to a job as a lawyer. And when I was a lawyer, I thought, you know what, I don't see a future here that is going to be fun for the kind of dad that I want to be.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I wanted to do my own thing, and I kind of always did. I had a narrative in my head about business owners, and I thought that it could be done a little differently. And so I wanted to do my own thing, and I was kind of a nerd about, fermentation and making booze. And for whatever reason, my wife said yes. It's not the first crazy idea I had. The first one, by the way, was to open up a restaurant called Montana's Ghetto Fabulous Rib Crib, but I did not do
There you
that.
go. There's rib cribs around. Yes.
Yeah, they're actually in the South. There were rib cribs. I felt bad. I felt like they stole my idea. But yeah,
Oh,
so I got the idea, and actually from a buddy in law school, because I wanted to do a brewery, but he was like, "No, you're on the wrong tree. Think of distilleries." And I was already doing
yeah.
that legally in my garage, so I thought, why not? Let's turn this into
So
a
let's
legit.
try it. Sure. Everybody drinks, right?
Yeah, yeah. So why not, right? It seemed recession proof.
Amazing. So you are and have been the country's very first Black-owned distillery owner. Like, tell everybody a little bit about the trials and tribulations when you first started and how you got into the distillery in Minneapolis, making a name for yourself now.
Yeah, well, and so it's important to point out that the whole first, like, I was not aware of that, right? There were other people who had
Right.
put together, places to like mix spirits, but as far as a distillery that actually distilled, I didn't know that it was the first of anything. That
Right.
really wasn't my point.
Yep.
And as it happens, until the Super Bowl was in Minnesota, we really didn't tell the story about it being a black-owned business. And
Right.
there's a pretty specific reason for that. I didn't, as a person of color growing up in Minnesota, you kind of have a spotlight shined on your race at all times.
Yep. You
And
do.
it's part of the reason why I live and raise my kids in New Orleans now, because it's very different. And I didn't want to be the black distiller. I just wanted to be Chris the distiller. And so we really didn't tell anyone about that. You couldn't tell from our marketing, couldn't tell from the packaging, nothing like that. But the path of getting it open was not easy. It's like many people who start businesses, access to capital is tough. If you don't come from money, if you don't know, if you don't have people with deep pockets around you or path to them, it's very difficult to raise money. And we were able to
Right.
raise none. And so we
Ugh.
started a distillery with a $60,000 loan through a city program
Ugh.
and thank God we could get it. And we spent it
Right.
all an afternoon on buying equipment. And I kept my day job. My wife kept her day job. And, I slept at the distillery at night. And during the day, I'd put my suit on and go be lawyer Chris. And then at night, I'd go and distill and watch this depressingly slow trickle of alcohol come off of this, kind of jerry rig still that we had.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, it was certainly difficult in the beginning. I'll never know really what the impact was of, the whole first thing, and whether or not I do know that the banks we walked into and the people we talked to were not ready to give us any money. And
Well,
I
and
know it
it's kind of
exactly.
back in that day, distilleries weren't as much of a thing as they are nowadays. Like you have obviously the ebbs and flows of business and just starting from the ground up. But when you go into somewhere and say, hey, let's do something different. Let's try, doing a distillery or having open on site, places where you can go and drink and it's not a bar. Let's try it.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So we went through the licensing process. We were the first ones in Minneapolis to do that. So there was no, and even on the permitting side, uh, no one had ever permitted a distillery in Minneapolis. And so they didn't, and no one wanted to be the last guy to sign off on this thing that was going to blow up the block. I mean, no one knew like, you guys make this flammable stuff. Like, what is that? It was hard. It was really hard. And thankfully, we had a lot, the city staff in Minneapolis, I have nothing but good things to say about.
Right.
They worked really hard to get us. I think there was a little bit of competition because they wanted us to open before the distillery in St. Paul, but
Yep.
they were so easy to work with, and they pushed for us and they helped us out. And even the elected officials at the time were also very helpful. And we got there, but it was difficult. We're introducing something that people didn't know. And even as a category, Minnesota was so far behind other states when it came to crafts because we had really bad laws. People didn't know what we were to really had any idea what to make of us when we first started.
All right. Tell a little bit about, okay, so you have a young family, you have a wife and you have a brand new child in the way. You're spending what, 7 to 7 at the law firm, and then you go in from like 7 to 2, 7 to 3, trying to do the distillery, never home. And your ultimate heart and soul is saying, hey, let's do something where I can ultimately pick my own hours down the road once we grow it. How was that for Chanel and everything else?
Yeah, how does that work? And it's
Right?
not that Chanel was doing nothing here. She had a full-time job. She also, when the distillery is about as old as my oldest son.
Yeah.
And so there's video of my wife doing a tasting, and she's got baby in one hand, and she's
Ugh.
bouncing him while trying to steady pour vodka in the other hand.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. Look, I mean, anyone start any business, I don't care what it is, you make your widget. There's a commitment that it takes, and you can't do it halfway. And so we did I mean, the whole working the day job thing, that was just a necessity. We didn't have the money. There's no way we could have done it. But there came a point where it was, I can't have one foot in this and expect it to go well. I need to leave the best job I've ever had as far as, I was making
Yeah,
good
most
money.
people die and want to be, have a great job at a law firm, be a
Yeah,
lawyer, and,
large
be
law
set.
firm. And so I made the decision to leave that. And what I told Chanel at the time, I said, this is going to be much harder. And I need 5 years. I need 5 hard years. And if you give me 5 hard years, then, this should get better. And
Yeah.
part of that was just being naive and thinking, yeah, in 5 years, I'll have this figured out. I'm at 11, 12 years. I still don't think I've figured it out. But that was a deal that we made back then.
How difficult was it to get into people's head? Hey, this is how it's going to work. This is what we want to do. Let's bring this to a new level. You go to liquor stores and you don't have a lot of options to try things. And you go to a bar and it's just like, here's your beer. We don't have a lot of selections and trying different things.
Yeah, craft was, and the idea of it really hadn't taken off in spirits. Craft beer had exploded, and so
Right.
people
Oh,
were
yeah. Yep.
people weren't really used to that. But it's different, At that time,
Yeah.
you could go into a liquor store and you could try a new beer you'd never heard of, and the cost was probably less than $2, right? To kind of build your own 6-pack type of a deal. Very different when someone shows up and says, "Here's this $30 plus bottle of spirits." There's no culture built up around that, and we still struggle to build that culture because it's just a higher entry point, and people don't browse spirits the way that they do beer. Or even wine for that matter, because of the that and culture. People, there's a lot of people who are like, well, I always drank this, and I'm gonna keep drinking that. My father-in-law is very much like that. I've put all kinds of different whiskeys in front of him, but he's gonna go. I think he did make a change, but it was Windsor Canadian in an ice
Yep.
house. Like that was what it was gonna be. It didn't really matter.
That's
what
just
it
straight that. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a challenge, and we have to, you're introducing people to a different way of thinking about a product that they've seen all of their life, and we're
For
fighting
sure.
again. And not fighting is the wrong word, but we are in the same market with behemoths who, will spill in a day what we could make in a year,
Right.
and that's a challenge. And the way that we went at it was very much, and it actually, by whether it was a choice or just necessity, we figured people had to know us. They had to know us
Yes.
personally. And when we were able to get the law changed so we could have a cocktail room,
Right.
that's what really saved us and allowed us to survive because people could come into our space, meet us. I was always there. I was always
Yep.
in the back room making something, right? And I got to meet people and ask them. We actually developed one of our products basically by crowdsourcing the R&D through a
Wow.
bunch of music teachers that I kept giving coffee liqueurs to.
Yep.
And that I think, people started to get to know who we were and understand who we were and ethos. And I think that that's what kept us alive in those early years.
How important was it to you to go from, okay, we're ownership, it's, my wife and I against the world, to now here's our team, and seeing them win and seeing them express everything and be like, okay, sometimes ownership is handed off, but when your team can succeed and, become a staple in the community, that's an amazing step to see too.
It is. It really is. And I love how you word that. I, like a lot of entrepreneurs, I kind of started with this idea of whatever needs to be done, I can do it and I can do it best. And it put me in the hospital. And
I can
I,
imagine.
was sitting there and thinking, well, I'm going to kill myself doing this.
Yep.
This isn't going to work. Right.
Right.
And all of the talk, there's no good version of a dad who's not there, period. And that also happened to coincide with my son reaching an age where he was very aware of me when I wasn't there. And when he was very young, he wanted nothing to do
Yep.
with me. It was all
Right.
mom, like
It's just
dad.
like, all right, bye. See you later.
But when I got to that point where I could walk through the door and have this little munchkin scream daddy and come running at
Yep.
me, he knew when I
Arms
was
out, running at you.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so those two things kind of coincided, and I decided, I was like, yeah, I need to make some space, and the only way that's going to work is if I open things up, and I can't
Yeah.
do everything, and there have
Right.
to be other people that I let in. I can't just be the only one who's making things or
Right.
making some of these decisions. And it's the best thing that ever happened. The more that I
Amazing.
have backed off and found smart people that I get to work with and let them, not micromanage them, not be over their shoulder, but look, you're smart, you're going to figure this out. The more that I brought, people like that into the orbit and as coworkers of mine, the better we've done. And today, who knows what my job is, right? We really
You have
don't.
the vision, but they bring everything to the table. Yeah.
Theory. But my team, I would put them up against anything. I mean, your
Amazing.
multi-billion-dollar companies, I'd take them on. I think we've got some of the greatest people, and none of them come from alcohol. Not one.
Right.
They all came from other places, but we're just good people.
Yeah.
And good, smart people can learn to do anything and, bring a fresh set of eyes to things. And, it's that formula has worked for us.
Let's talk a little bit about the name Du Nord. Obviously, our state motto has some ties to that from what I see and hear. And a lot of people don't know what our state motto is. Is that where you got the Du Nord from?
That's exactly where we got it.
Yeah.
And so again, go back to the very beginning.
Yeah.
We did all of our marketing budget was $500, and with that,
Wow.
we had to design the bottles, come up with a name, get logos, everything. And my wife had a pretty big hand in that. She was working on that while I was, grinding corn. And so we thought the only way that we're going to survive is if people know that we're local. And what could be more local than a state motto? And so we started with Minnesota state motto, L'Etoile du Nord. And, that's where the name for the distillery came from. As it turned out, it also was the name of our first vodka. Our first product was vodka, and it was
Very
L'Etoile.
cool.
And we learned two things really quickly. First of all, no one can pronounce L'Etoile. And people will probably listen to this saying like, yeah, Chris, neither can you. But
Well, I was sitting there, I asked my coworkers before, I'm like, okay, what's the correct pronunciation of L'Etoile du Nord?
yeah, exactly. Right. But now, see, I live in New Orleans, and so all of the French words are pronounced in a different way here. And so,
Yeah.
so give me a pass.
Yep.
The other quick learning was no one knows the state motto. And not only does no one in Minnesota know the state motto, one of the states where people are most proud, Minnesotans and Texans, I kind of put in
Yeah.
this
Yep.
same batch of pride about where they're from. Minnesotans don't know their state motto, and no one else does either. I've
Right.
gone to working in Congress. I would ask people who worked in Congress, right? had no idea what the mottos were of the states that they worked for. And
You
so
had a hockey team kind of named after it, but let's go back to that too. Yeah.
but again, like, North Stars, right? People could
Right.
get that, but they had no idea that the Minnesota State motto was "Let's Walk North." So this is kind of where, if we had some people who knew a thing or two about marketing, they probably could have stepped in and been like, "That's probably going to be a miss," but we really didn't. We did. There were so many things we didn't know at that point.
Right.
We kind of took a shot in the dark. Now we've gone through a rebrand, right? The Denord Craft Spirits was changed to Denord Social Spirits. We felt that the social was important, and a number of things have changed with our business with the addition of the foundation. But the Denord State, and people I live in New Orleans say, well, are you going to move it? Are you going to do this, that, and the other? It's a Minnesota business, and it does have a sense of place. We are very much invested in our neighborhood and in our community, and so we'll be Denord forever. Right. It'll
You can
always.
find it on Delta now too. I mean, you can find it and see it everywhere. There you go.
Yeah. So, 10 million times a year, people are looking at these little bottles and, wondering, what is this about? And so maybe, if nothing else, perhaps, maybe this should be one of our missions, that we can make Minnesota state motto be the most known state motto by virtue of these little blue bottles of vodka that people are
Well, it
consuming.
makes people wonder where the name came from. So you Google search it and then you start to find more out and about not just the company, but you guys have a foundation. Divot, like go back a little bit and talk about some of the years like 2020 and how your foundation got started.
Yeah, so the foundation was like many things. You could call it a happy accident. It kind of was. We started. We try to run the business off of a certain set of values, and one of those values is that the business has to be an asset to the community. It shouldn't be a drain. And that's something that we take very seriously for a company that makes alcohol, which is, yes, it can be a something that brings people together, but it also can be destructive. And in 2020, when I think we all know what happened in 2020, we had fires, and that touched us too. We had an opportunity to take that narrative and flip it a little bit. We had after the fire at our place, the community showed up, cleaned the space up, and there was no grocery stores around. And so and people were trying to donate. And we thought, you want to know what? We can professionalize this. I have
Yep.
a campaign background. I know a lot of people who are really good at organizing. I can reach out to those people and bring them in. My friend Jessica Ward Dennison, like, she came by. She's another organizer and helped us put together a volunteer operation. And from a fire on Thursday night into Friday, we had a distribution center up there and running by
Yep.
Sunday, and by that Monday, we were
Wow.
feeding 400 families a day.
It's
And
amazing.
that was, I think, a good example of what I think a business should do. It's that at
Yep.
that moment, people didn't need spirits,
No.
and actually, we were making hand sanitizer at that
Let's
point.
pivot and help out and see how we can give back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not that Denord did it, right? Denord facilitated. We were a space, and we helped to bring people together. But really, what happened is that the community did it. They're the ones who
Right.
staffed it. We had hundreds of volunteers, and they came in. They spent their entire day from morning till night, right? And there would be people lined up down the street to get in because they couldn't
Yep.
get resources, because they couldn't get out to the suburbs.
Right.
And it was those volunteers. It was the people from the community, and both immediate and the greater community, who came in and actually ran that thing. And we just said, we've got a forklift, we've got a space, and we'll do the best that we can to facilitate
Make the best
this.
of it. Yeah.
We'll buy food until our credit card dies.
Yep.
Because at the time we also thought, hey, this is what the community needs, and that's our job. You do whatever's next, and that's what was next. And what that eventually turned into was a GoFundMe campaign that we started, because while we were doing this, where people wanted to support us, but we had insurance, and we would later learn we were underinsured, but we had insurance, we had other backstops that there were other businesses that were critical along the Lake Street corridor that didn't have. And so
Yeah.
we started GoFundMe, and we tried to raise $30,000, and we raised that in like an hour, and
Wow.
we had to keep upping the amount. And I remember my wife telling me, like, oh, we got to go back. And I was legitimately annoyed, because we were trying to run this operation. We had all these volunteers. Like, I don't have
Yeah.
time to keep changing this. I was like, just change it to like,
Set
500,000.
a huge number then. Let's just be
ridiculous.
done with it. Yeah.
We almost raised $1 million.
Wow.
Well, it just again, it's just the logistics of it. From a GoFundMe, that's a personal that goes to you personally,
Yes.
and
Yep.
you pay taxes on it. So if you have
Yep.
all these people gave money, a third of it was going to go to taxes. So we said, well, to keep that from happening, let's create a nonprofit and then put the money in the
Absolutely.
nonprofit so that way 100% of it can actually be used for what people donated it for. And then that's the birth of the Dunard Foundation, starting with we've got an immediate need, we need to do that. We've got an intermediate need, which is that there are these businesses that are and they need access to funds, and so we're going to give out this money that we got to these other businesses. And then the last leg of the foundation, which is what we are working on now, is how can we make other people's paths a little bit easier to
Right.
entrepreneurship, so that way they can be independent, make their own decisions.
Well, and you notice, like in the business world and every world right now, Minneapolis is a place that has seen ups and downs, but people are starting to spread out and go to some of the other communities when the heart and soul is still there in Minneapolis. It's still there. You have the buildings, you have the land, you have the people that have been there all of their life, not wanting to outsource and go to, let's say, Maple Grove, Blaine, anywhere else that may be there. But let's just pull together as a community and make it whole again. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, and we want to be part of that. I mean, our foundation puts on a festival. We did it last year. It's called Crew du Nord. It's free, and anyone
Nice.
can come. And but the purpose of that is we want people to see Minneapolis and see Lake Street as we see it, right?
Right.
Which is not a place that you're worried about your safety. It's not. I grew up in the area. I was never
Yeah.
worried about my safety.
Right.
But to see it as the vibrant community that it is, and see it as a confluence of so many different peoples and cultures, and
Yeah.
that's strength. And
Yep.
but the narrative shifted for political reasons in some cases, and also just because people watch the news, and the last time they saw the area mentioned, there was a precinct on fire and everything else burning down. And so we want to shift that narrative and bring people back into, and whether or not you want to live there is up to you, but it still is the cultural
But
heart.
the culture is still there. You have all the different ethnicities and all the different types of food and all the different people. And where else can you go where you can get that wholeness, that adversity, and the genuine care and the want to be there? It's amazing.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better. I mean, but we just want to show that to people again and remind them, right? We're not adding that much to
Right.
Minneapolis.
It's
We just want to put it
it's just
back
a
on the.
little bit. Let's grow Minneapolis instead of let's grow everywhere else and keep it going, because that's the heart and soul. That's where the spirit really revolves around in the Twin Cities.
Agree.
So we get back into the distillery, the brewery age, and the states that we're in now, where a lot of those breweries and those distilleries are starting to kind of close up, and or new ones were opening up. But now there's a little bit of a shift where they're kind of going back to the old days. Do you see that or feel that at all with the Nord?
Well, this is a trend that's been going on for a while. I spent a couple of years as president of our trade association, the American Craft Spirits Association, and we've been watching the numbers for a while. The amount of money that's spent on spirits has continually gone up, but the volume of spirits purchase has continually gone down. And what that is it's premiumization, right? So people are moving towards, they're drinking less, but they're drinking better. But we've had more, so the license you get to open a distillery is called a DSP. We've had more DSPs open than close every year until now. It plateaued last year, and we're going to be going the other direction. And so there's a number of reasons for that.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
you've got
it's
supply chain, you've got everything else that's on top of it too. The cost of rent in itself is
everything's
ingenious
more
and going up.
expensive.
Yeah,
Make a luxury. Nobody needs what we make, right? So
right.
it's a luxury. So what are the first things people cut, right? They cut the luxuries, and you can buy cheap alcohol. It's made by macro distillers, and you don't have to patronize these small guys. And so it's difficult. It's getting more difficult, and you're watching places close. Now we have some good partnerships that allow us to survive and thrive, but we're not immune to that either. I mean, we see the costs going up, and we sell to those restaurants that are also closing, and
Right.
they're telling the same story. They're like, listen, this is really hard, and Minneapolis is a very expensive place to do business.
Yeah.
And as people lose out, that if inflation or whatever other reason is causing them to not have as much money in their pocket, they just don't go out as much. And as a
Right.
brand that's all about people going out and being social together,
And
That's
collaborating instead of being like head to head, like you're going to be a competitor. Let's collaborate together. Let's sit down at the table. Everybody's welcome, but let's grow because you can always learn from other people. And I think people don't always know that or see that when they sit down at a table. Let's figure things out.
yeah. Well, that's actually one of the core tenets, one of those values
Yeah.
that is very important to me and has often been unsatisfying for our fans and people who follow us because they often want us to take a stronger stance on perhaps some social issue or this, that, or the other. And I have always wanted to, I've been blessed in my life to have seen things from a number of different angles and conservative ones. Left leaning guy myself, but I have people in my family who are not. And the more people, different people that I've met, the more I see that they are the same. And so
Yeah.
we are all about creating spaces where they can get together and realize that sameness. And that's in the age that we're in right now, which is very tribal and very, put your flag up and say who you're with. That's not what we do.
No.
And
Right.
we won't do that. And we've
Right.
had people come to us and say, well, why can't you exclude these people? Why won't you exclude the police? Why won't you exclude these groups? It's not because, I've stared down a number of gun barrels and most of them have
Yeah.
been the police pointing them at me.
Yep.
It's not, but the day that we are willing to exclude them because of their job, right, is the day that we become the problem, right?
Right.
They're not the problem, right? The lack
Yep.
of communication is the problem. So we need to be and make spaces. And with Lanyap and with the Denard Cocktail Room, we want to make spaces where absolutely everyone is welcome. It's one of the first things that I tell people if they want to work at any of these companies or organizations. It's, I don't know what your politics is, but if the person that you don't like walks through that door, if you can't treat them well, you can't
Right.
be here
No. Right.
because we're
Everybody's
about
got to be
getting
welcome
a
because
table.
you never know. Yeah.
Yeah, we're about creating a table for everyone to sit down. And that dialogue, that rubbing of cultures, right? Which is what we're not doing in society now. We're moving so
Right.
fast away from that. And you can see the result of it. It's like, but when it happens and when you see people actually find common ground, that's beautiful. And if a company that
Hmm.
makes booze, right,
Right.
can be a part of bringing people together, I mean, this is why we are Denard's social spirits now, not craft spirits. If we can be a part of bringing people together to just get a little bit of that, right? That's
Yep.
amazing. And it
Right.
clearly isn't just dyed into the wool with what we make or we are. It's just or not what we make, but it is who we are. It's just the people. So if we can do that, anyone can do that. And so that's the thesis that I want to prove with whatever business we are in is that that's actually good for business. That
It is.
creating a space where you're not necessarily putting it, it's not the confirmation bias. You're not just telling people what they want to hear. But if you can create a space where you can create community, not just among the people who already talk to each other, but the people with whom they don't talk, that is a sound business model. We have people doing that across the country. I think that's a path to get us
Right.
out where we are.
You don't want to do something where you stand out, but you want to do something where you can all work together. Like when you win, we all win. So why not just put the heads together and make it happen? I have noticed, and I have a couple things I've noticed, like you have some strong mentors that you've had in your life that have always stuck by you. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about that and the path that they have helped bring you to where you are and having cocktails even named after them and everything else?
Yeah. Well, I'd say first off, so I have an odd path. I was adopted at 14, and so my parents are now and have been kind of my North Star. They're who I've looked to and try to emulate, and who I want to be when I grow up. And so that standard of compassion and sticking with even through very hard times, because I was a very hard kid, a very difficult kid. I start there, but I had other people who stepped into my life when they didn't have to, and it's one of the reasons why at the original Denard Cocktail Room, at the now Denard Cocktail Room at the Coliseum Building on Lake Street, and at Lanyap on Lake Street. So I
Yeah.
only have one discount, and that discount's for
Right.
teachers because
Amazing.
teachers along my path have all, it's not their job to do this, but I can name several people who have taken the time to deal with this little kind of pain in the butt kid and see something in me and say, I'm not going to give up on you. And, but for them, I am absolutely not here. There's absolutely no way. And I know no one else, no other profession that I would call a hero just for doing your job. Because everyone who's doing it could be making more money somewhere else. They get blamed for a lot of things that they couldn't possibly control, and they go to work every single day. And if they didn't, then future generations are screwed. And kids like me never make it. So we have a coffee liqueur named after a woman. Her name is actually Louise Borman.
Wonderful.
Louise is like another mom to me.
Yep.
But her students knew her as Frida because she thought it was a little too familiar when she first started teaching for people to call her by her actual name. So some students said, why don't we just call you Frida? And it stuck.
Makes
and
it
so,
easy. Yeah.
So we have a spirit called Cafe Frida that we named after her and in honor of teachers everywhere for the work that they do. And
Yep.
she's how I got through high school. Without her, I wouldn't have survived that. And she created a space for me, a kid who couldn't really act or sing, but she cast me in a lot of musicals.
There you go.
Largely so that way I would have something that would keep me grounded. And
Well, it kept having you show up or want to show up anyway, too. Yeah.
exactly. And I didn't know it, but my parents will remind me of because they were in cahoots. They were working together.
Boy.
With Frida. And she told them, she said, just keep him coming to practice. Keep him coming to theater. Like, we'll get through this. Just keep him coming. And I've learned so much from that. And I have so much respect for it. And I know exactly, that I know full well that without that kind of support, and no one paid her to do that. No one paid
Right.
any of these teachers to do any of these
No.
extra things that they are doing. And I don't know anyone. I literally have not met anyone in my life who doesn't have a teacher story of that teacher who's like, oh yeah, for me it was Mrs. So and so or Mr. So and so. Like
Going
every
above and beyond for the pay that they get too is the other side of it. It's like who else in their field goes above and beyond to just make sure they're holding somebody accountable, making sure
yeah,
that
spending
they
their own
hold
money.
them to a different standard.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's we call people in a lot of the other services heroes for doing their job.
Right.
They're also paid for it.
Yep.
And there are perks that come along with it. But I don't know what the perks of being a teacher are.
No.
And so we figured there ought to be some. And so we said, all right, well, we can give them 20% off. And it can
Awesome.
always be an honor for them. And we can name a product after them and wherever we can show up. One of my favorite events that we used to do is we would have do a pig roast at
Oh,
the
fun.
school year. And we'd invite teachers and they eat for free and we give them free cocktails just as a thank you. Right. And
Absolutely.
I love that. I love that. And there's no community I would want to be more associated with because there's no
Right.
better group of people that I know.
Tell everybody a little bit about the story. I mean, you're now located at the Coliseum and the steps that you took to get there, and a little bit about your restaurant, the Cajun restaurant, coming back to heart and full fruition with the New Orleans and all of that stuff. So,
Yeah, so we got involved. So the Coliseum building is at 2700 Lake. It was really the only large building left in that area post 2020 in the unrest. It was set on fire multiple times and it was going to be demolished. The owner had already taken the insurance payout, and so she wanted to tear it down. And Seward Redesign, with whom we've had a relationship, I think now they're just called Redesign, but they're Seward Redesign, a community development nonprofit. They bought it and wanted to do something different in the way that it was developed. It's something that I had conversations with their executive director, a guy named Brian Miller, who's big help to me. But they had conversations about whether or not what they were doing by buying up properties and trying to get these businesses into them, whether or not that was all that they should be doing. And what was missing from it was, what about the people that you're trying to help? What about them owning?
right.
And that's a pretty radical step. And in this development, that's exactly what they sought to do. And so they identified two women of color, Janice and Alicia, who were interested in coming in and putting their businesses and being owner operators. And they approached me to see if I'd be willing to join them. And I thought, what a great opportunity. I'd always wanted to be on Lake Street.
Yep.
That is the heart of that
Right.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
And but it was a very difficult play. I mean, you look around and you say, all right, well, it's a lot of abandoned buildings. This isn't where, if you wanted to just be successful, put it in North Loop, right?
Right.
Put it
Yep.
right next to people with all the money in the world, and then you can charge what you want and you can be successful and print your money.
That's not the heart and soul.
It's not,
That's not Lake
it's
Street.
not our
Right.
mission. right? Our mission is, and it expanded. I mean, the foundation mission expanded because it's what was next. It's what needed to happen, and that is we've got to bring this area back. And so we went in and just because of the way the building, it's historic, we couldn't change everything. So we ended up with this odd situation where we had a restaurant, but it was split in two and you couldn't walk from one side to the other. And so it looked like two restaurants. And so we thought, well, it's too big to all be the cocktail room, right? And so we wanted to have that spiritual successor for the Dunard cocktail room, but we needed to bring something else in there, a different concept. And living in New Orleans, I mean, the food, it's not a place you go to lose weight, right? Like
Nope.
the food is amazing and, the culture is amazing. And I wanted to bring some of that to the Twin Cities. We're not the first ones to bring a Louisiana concept to the Twin Cities, but we wanted to bring it up. We wanted to create, again, that space, that gathering space where people come together. And it made sense to, the name for it, Lagniappe, here say, oh, that's Lagniappe. That's just a little something extra that you give to somebody, right? You sit down at your table and you order your food and they say, hey, I got this other appetizer that got made on accident. Y'all take it, right?
Yep.
Lagniappe. And so
Yep.
that just made sense. It's that extra step, right?
The
That
extra
someone would
something.
not
Yeah.
be expecting. And it's been great. Right now, one thing I would poke at a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily call it Cajun, although our jambalaya is a little more Cajun than it is Creole, but I would call it more
Yep.
Creole than Cajun.
Perfect.
But it's been great, and people have really enjoyed it. It's a challenge. It's a struggle.
Yeah.
We've got to convince people to come in and to see us. We don't have a lot of complementary businesses around us, but again, the thesis here is that if people come in and they come to this space, entrepreneurs are also going to see that, and they're going to see that foot
Absolutely.
traffic. They're going to say, well, I could be there too. And then
Right.
we can be like a little catalyst that other people want to move into and say, well, I want some of their customers, so I'm going to move next to them. And then we can rebuild from the inside out, hopefully with a little bit more of a collaborative base of businesses.
Absolutely. I mean, I know there's a lot of empty buildings. People are starting to finally come back to work, even if it's hybrid, but the hybrid still brings people back to the community. It still gets people in there. Or if they can see, hey, I'm going to go into town to try to get, some Creole, or I'm going to go into town to go to do Nord, or I'm going to just go hit a game or do whatever they do. The more they go there and the more they see the culture, the more they want to be back there and get back to Minneapolis, which is hopefully, what's going to start turning around here in the near future.
Yeah, that's the hope. And the thing is, I don't think Minneapolis has to do much different, right?
No.
We just have to
Right.
remind people, like whether it's Minneapolis, whether it's St. Paul. I went to high school in Minneapolis, so I always have a
Yep.
grudge against St. Paul, but I did live in right for a little while.
Yep.
It's a dirty little secret, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot that's good, and
Yeah.
there's a lot that's good in the people and in the culture that's there, and we just need to remind people of that. And so, any opportunity that we can get to, I actually before this got off of a call. We're talking about this year's Cru de Nord Festival, and I'm like, yeah,
Nice.
anytime we get an opportunity to bring people in, and even if it's under the guise, even if we bait them in with music, right?
Yeah.
But
Yep.
so you can see like, hey, not only, okay, you've got Lagniappe, you've got Denard here, but a
Yep.
block away, you've got Himalayan. You've got
Right.
amazing tacos on this street that are better than anything you're going to get anywhere outside of Mexico City. I mean, there's
No question.
all this amazing stuff going on right here in the city. You don't have to, travel internationally to get it. It's already here.
Right. We'll bring some of the international to the streets, maybe do a bigger festival than what's already been there and bring people out and about and just get them back to the city. I think
Well,
that's
that's the
important,
plan.
especially where we're at.
Dirty little
So
secret.
what do you see
that I-
what do you see in the future for growth and where you're at and what's expanding and coming to the area? What do you want to see?
Well, I wear a couple different hats. On that foundation side, I want to see us. I want Cru de Nord to be a whole Lake Street thing.
Right.
I want a parade, and one of these
Yep.
days I'm going to get it. It may take a couple years.
Bring the trumpets in, bring the music and bands in, let's go.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yep.
I want the U of M marching band. I want South High marching band. Let's do this.
Yeah.
But more importantly, not that that's not important. We obviously, but I also am excited to see the foundation get up and running again. It has a new executive director.
Amazing.
We're going to be doing some programming around, one, encouraging kids to think of themselves as future business owners, and two, for people who are kicking the tires and just thinking about it, to do some pitch competitions and give them the opportunity to build that first business plan and kind of get into the flow of how they might start their own business and
Yeah.
follow their own North Star. For the distillery, that team has grown too, and we're really excited about this year.
Yep.
Yes, it's been tough. I mean, sales are down for most distilleries, but we look at it in the opposite. We say this is going to be our biggest year,
Time to grow. Let's go. There's
and
less competition.
it's for whatever reason, we want to continue growing. We have a great partnership with Delta Airlines. We continue to grow that partnership. And with the restaurant, it's survival is a win, right?
Right.
Because it's an extremely hard business. And, but we're happy. We have some amazing people working there. We have an amazing chef who is, young, but learning so much and pushing out amazing food. And so really, we want to continue to grow. But the most important thing, and this has become particularly important, or not important to us, but I spend a lot of my time on this, is that
Yep.
as we grow, we stay us. We're not
Yes.
looking to we've had ways to make a quick buck, right? And we don't chase them, right? We want to grow as Denord. And so
Right.
retaining our ethos, retaining our mission. If we can't do that, then it's not really worth us being around. And we say that
It's
if the
not
culture,
authentic. It's
do we?
it's just a brand and not the people that stand behind it too.
Yeah. And so people
Yeah.
got to know us. I mean, we're I think nice people, right? And
Yeah.
so that's the job and really for me working with the team that I work with, it's not so much about people meeting me,
Right.
as I turn out to actually be kind of a boring dad. But for people to meet our team and to
Yeah.
put them out and find more opportunities for people to interact with them and find out a little bit about what we do and why we do it. Right. And I don't think that a straight up spirits company that does nothing but produce alcohol to try to make somebody's party a little more fun, I don't think that model has longevity. I think that you
There's
need
no
to be,
why behind it. There's no drive behind it. It's just that brand then, and that's not the story.
it's not. And I think people want to see themselves in the brands that they enjoy. And I think that there's some value in saying, all right, well, I could drink any vodka, but if I pick this one up, then it's also supporting a foundation that's doing work that I like in the community. And, it's supporting indirectly, it's supporting these festivals and whatnot that are free to the public that anyone can come to, and other low barrier, events that we'll do. That's who we are. And I still believe, now I could be proven wrong, right? Let's talk in 10 years, but I believe that that's a sound business practice. They're all
It
long-term
is.
investments.
Well, it's 9 times out of 10 when I do a podcast or when I meet people out and about, it's like, okay, tell me about you. And they start giving me their sales pitch on their business. I'm like, okay, that's great. That's your business, but who are you and what makes you stand out? It's not just here's our product, but you're also getting me as a person and us as a company. And this is what we do differently to stand out. We want to help. We want to give back. We are authentic in us. And that's one thing that people have to learn. You're not just a robot, you're not just a company, but you're a person and you're a company as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. We talk about. For me, I use this story of the elephant, right? And this way,
Yep.
I've never met any special people in my life. I've met people who are elected and people who are famous, but I've never met any special ones. I've met, people who have done extraordinary things, but
Right.
we all are amazing people, but we're all limited by our perspective. And five blind men all touching an elephant can all tell the truth and give a completely different story of what an elephant is. But if they talk to each other and share their experiences and share their perspectives where they all intersect, they might actually succeed in describing that elephant. And so that's how
Absolutely.
we look at, that's how I look at particularly our company and the people that I get to work with, is that I don't think that I have all the right answers. I did. I had to
Right.
learn the hard way, right? I've paid the
Yep.
iron price, but I know I don't have all the answers. But between us, I think we have a pretty good shot of coming to the right move if we take advantage of all those different points of perspective. If we see where those lines of vision intersect, that's usually the right idea. And I've benefited from that, and continue to benefit. That's why Denord still exists. And I think
Right.
watching places close, it's not always because they have a bad business practice. A lot of it is just luck at the draw, or any other number of things. There's a lot of pent up debt coming out of the pandemic that is now
Yeah.
taking people down. But I think that we have managed to survive because we have this amazing team of people who are all individually empowered to give their best selves to the collective. And we don't always get it right. We
No,
still do dumb things,
but you're
but
not growing and you're not learning things if you're not making mistakes. And people have to
exactly,
learn that it's okay to make mistakes because that's where you grow. That's where you step outside the box and you take it to the next level too.
exactly. I always say, like, anyone, make decisions, make mistakes. Right? I'll be the first one. If you were to catalog all the dumb things I've done at Denord, we'll just limit it to Denord because the life much, but all the dumb things I've done at Denard, I've done it all wrong. And I've done
Right?
every job at the business. And so I know how hard they are. And so, like, yeah, it's like, you're smart people. You'll figure it out. Right. And sometimes you're going to be wrong, but that's okay.
I'll
Right.
just
That's how
try
you
it. We'll
learn.
see how it goes. If I win, win. If I don't, more losses you learn from anyway.
As long as they don't kill you. Right.
Right?
Anything doesn't kill you. Right. And
They've been
nothing's,
close, but yeah, they haven't killed me yet. So we'll just keep trying.
we've come remarkably close. And
Yeah.
each time that we've come remarkably close, the move that has saved us has been the thing that had the least support. Like an MBA wouldn't have done it, right?
Right.
The thing that the hand sanitizer thing was fortuitous, but we didn't do it to make money. We actually we made it and we gave it to first responders. And
Yeah.
then
Tell our
because
tell
we
our
did that,
listeners a little bit about that story and how that kind of came to head with the hand sanitizer and the alcohol and everything.
well, we had a cocktail room, and that's where all our revenue was coming from. And the staff came to me and they said, we don't really feel safe. And with the pandemic, and at that point, we really didn't know what COVID was going to be. And we said, fine, we shut it down. And a couple days after that, the governor shut everything down anyway. Um, and we thought that was the end for us. Without that income, I mean, that was the overwhelming majority of our income. And so
Right.
without that income, we were dead. And so we had some alcohol, and alcohol goes in the hand sanitizer, and we thought, well, our last gasp here if is let's just take what we have and let's turn it into something useful that people can't get. And taking people back, not to bring people back to trauma, but hand sanitizer became a pretty hot commodity. People were able to sell bottles of hand sanitizer for 50, $60. There were
Yeah.
gallons of
That
it
and
going.
toilet paper both, but hey.
Yeah. And so there was an opportunity there to make a bunch of money, but again, it didn't line up with our ethos. And it's not just me, it's also the people that I work with. We said, let's make this and let's give it to the people who need it, the people who can't stay home. And the
Amazing.
Plymouth Police Department was actually the first people that we gave it to. We gave it to homeless shelters. Again, any place where congregate care was happening. People found out that we were doing it. And we were at the time we were doing it in partnership with Tattersall Distilling, and people found out about this, and we actually approached the state and said, "Look, we'll make it at cost, right? Like we don't need to have a markup. We'll make it at cost." They didn't end up taking us up on that. I think they spent a lot more money because of it, but people found out that we could do it, and I had the U.S. Postal Service calling me up saying we
Amazing.
need truckloads,
Yep.
and so we ended up. 2020 ended up being our highest sales year ever. And
Wow.
it was because of up to that point. We've exceeded it that by now, but up to that point, it was our highest sales year. We almost doubled
Amazing.
our revenue. And it was because we did the thing that made sense that
Right.
people needed. And then
Yep.
people found out about it and they said, well, hey, could you do it for us? And you do it for a for-profit company and we'll pay you for it. And it's moves like that where, and again, I'm not taking all the credit for this. Like we sit down, we talk about how we're going to do some of these things. And when we make a step towards our community to help out, we
Yep.
find that the community usually takes 2 steps towards us. It may take a little while for that second step to fall,
Yeah.
right? It's a
Yep.
long-term investment, but it comes eventually.
Right. And I think just being able to give back, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we do like the podcast that we do, any way that we can help out. Let me help you grow. Let's hear your story. Let's have that connection, but really get to know each other on a different level. It'll go out in a newsletter, or it'll do everything else, but I want to know you and how I can help out. Like that's our why. Like let's give back. Let's see what we can do that's a little different to help.
Yeah, and if you can have a little bit of fun while you're doing it,
Yeah.
all the better, right?
Yep.
You know,
Absolutely.
it's-
You got to laugh through things, and just like you laugh through your mistakes and through life, you gotta keep going and learn and grow for sure.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
with being a dad, being a husband, what are some major things or some things that you try to instill in your kids to keep them growing, getting out there into the community, but also having an entrepreneurial background and wanting them to do things on their own?
Well, I think that they have a built-in advantage that I didn't.
Yeah,
They're
right?
gonna grow up a lot in a much more stable situation than I did. And first thing that I can give them, and probably the most important, I have three boys. It's very important to me that they grow up to be gentlemen, and they grow up to understand. They don't have to take all of my values or the way that I do things. And what's most important to me is that they grow up to be good men, um, who are independent, who can who can stand on their own 2 feet. And that's, it sometimes it seems counterintuitive, but this is also what our foundation is about, right? It's about, we
Yep,
believe that the strongest community are made up by strong individuals, right? Who are
absolutely.
empowered to follow their own North Star.
Yep,
So you get to be you. So you do you, but do you not at the expense of everyone else around you, right?
right.
Add to the experience and to your community of, the people around you. So it's important to me. Again, right now my oldest is 11.
Okay, yep. Getting to be
And
the
11
busy ages then.
can do so much, right? I have three
Yeah,
boys, 11, 9, and 7, and they're all individuals and beautiful, little boys, and
uniquely different too. Yep.
very much trouble, very much different. They are paying me back for everything. Every bad little thing I did as a kid, they're giving back to me, which
It's
is,
like honing back to the teacher. Okay, I'm not giving up. We're gonna just keep rolling with it and see what
yeah,
happens.
the model I work off of. That and my parents
Yep.
was like, you're not going to chase me away.
Nope.
Uh, but they really do. I mean, they give you that perspective. You don't know how long. I don't know when my last day is going to be,
Right.
but it's more. I look, your day to day. I think every parent is doing everything that they possibly can, right?
And more. Yeah.
And the way I look at it is, if I'm living a decent life, as good a person as I can be, right, and following
Yep.
the values that I have, then if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, that's what they're going to remember. And if that's the version of man that they think, hey, I want to grow up to be like that, then I will have done something good. But
Absolutely. And
it's
you as a parent can only say I've done as much as I can for as long as I can, and whatever happens after that, you live and learn from it and try to make the best of it.
yeah. I mean, I love stand-up comedy, and every stand-up comedian that I listen to has some story about something terrible that their parents did. I'm really convinced that there's no way you get out of somebody's stand-up routine. I think you could be the best parent ever, and there's something that you're going to do that is going to be traumatic to that child and is going to define them in some way, and they're going to have something negative to say. Like, you can't get away from that. So you just do the best that you can, right? Have them be respectful. If they yell at their mom, they get a consequence, right? You do the best thing that you can and know that you're going to end up in the routine anyway.
Well, the good thing about it is we didn't have cell phones way back then either, so a lot of the stuff that we did wasn't fully recorded. So when the
Yeah.
kids nowadays say, "Hey, I did something," they have the video proof to say it's actually right here. Let's figure this out.
Yeah. And there's also going to be video evidence of all the negative things that they do that is going to
Yep.
follow them for the rest of their
And
life,
it
which is
doesn't go away at all.
something
Right.
we didn't have to deal with,
Right.
right? I remember when Facebook was created, I was in
Yep.
college and we were like, oh, it was just for college kids and whatnot. But we had no idea the world that they're growing up in now
Yep.
with the social media and being so connected and so disconnected,
Right.
that we're all learning that. So
Yeah.
nobody has the right answers here. We're just, doing the best that we can. But I will say that I will fight them being on any kind of social media until the very last moment. I can't stop it. But
Right.
everything else, whatever. We'll
They've
take a
just
little.
got to be unique and find something that they enjoy and stay with it. It doesn't matter if it's sports, if it's a baseball little league team, if it's art, if it's music, if it's crafting, if it's graphic design, whatever it may be. Follow it, do it. Don't be scared to try new things and live and learn. I think that's the big thing for kids too.
Yeah, and they have the luxury to do that, and
Yeah.
not all kids do.
Yep.
And
Nope.
that's, I think, one of the hardest things that I grew up poor,
Yeah.
and eating government cheese,
Yep.
and there are, I at the time I don't think I loved it, but I'm the guy I am because of it, but I can't
Right.
recreate that for them, and I really don't
Nope.
want to. I mean, I don't want
No.
them to know what it's like to go to bed hungry. Um, but at the same time, we have to have them appreciate what they do have, and that
Yes.
ability, even to talk about, hey, you can be whatever you want to be, and you can go to school wherever you want to go, and all that. Those are all
Yep.
luxuries. Not everybody
Right.
gets,
Right.
and but from their perspective, again, they only can touch one part of the elephant, right? And so you can't fault them for what the experiences that they haven't had or that they can't,
Everybody has their own story
right?
too. Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. So you do your best to try to add it in and make and create these experiences for them so that way they can put themselves in other people's shoes and understand their place in like the greater society and their community. But at the end of the day, they're just kids. And one of the things I think I've done my best job if I let them be kids as long as possible. I don't feel like I got that long of a childhood. And I want them to be kids for as long as possible. I want them to be goofy and weird and loud and whatever for as long as possible. All the adulting, once it starts, it never really stops.
It's
So,
it's scary. It keeps going. I mean, my brain doesn't shut off at night. I could be going to bed at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning every night, and any sound that the kids make, any smell that's out there, like I'm on it. I'm like, okay, not only is my work brain going, but my mom mode is like on. I'm like, all right, what's going on? Yeah, you're making a pizza. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Great, but you have school tomorrow, or we all have things to do. Let's try to figure this out. Yeah.
yeah, I'm a very sound sleeper. I often find out my wife will be like, yeah, last night, August was up at 2 in the morning. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. August 2. What? Wait, what?
Right. Uh, so having a good, a strong partner, definitely helps.
Yes. So what's in store for her? Where's she working and what's she doing and how can people find her and find you guys and get out in the community?
Well, she's kind of a big deal. She's,
Yeah.
C-suite head of development for a renewable energies company.
Amazing.
So she has a real job. So that's what lets me go around and do what I do. So she could be anywhere in the country at any given moment, right? And so she keeps very busy. So as to where you can find her, probably where there's a utility scale solar farm being put up. She probably is somewhere in the orbit, or she certainly knows about it.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So and that's she's always been really the one who kept. I mean, starting a small business is a great way to lose money, and so
Yeah.
having a
And it's a
partner,
stress around a relationship. People
it
don't
is.
see that, but it is because it adds more to the plate.
Well, yeah, and we both were doing double duty with the job and then having Denord, and eventually we made the move where she stepped out of Denord and I stepped out of my other job and did it full time because working together with your spouse is absolutely awful,
Yeah.
right? It's because you take your fights from the home right into work, and it's like, no, it's I
Right.
don't recommend it for anyone, right?
Yep.
Stay away. Terrible. But but someone had to have the real job, and she loves her career and she loves the work that she does, and she's a farm girl who now gets to go help farmers get a new kind of income and keep their land, right? And
Awesome.
at the same time, producing renewable energy, which we need. So
Yep,
she
absolutely.
loves what she does, and she's unreasonably good at it.
Yep. And that's perfect. That's important to have that connection, but at the same time, at the end of the day, you can go home and have a normal family life and hang out with the kids and do what you do and then back at it the next day.
Yep, normal, right?
Yes?
Show me normal, right?
Or new normal, whatever that may be.
But
Yeah. Yep.
right, everyone's house is crazy, right? We all have
Right.
the same stories, just different versions of them.
It's just like when people talk about work-life balance, everybody's work-life balance is different. I don't know if there's a balance, but every day there's something new.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, we appreciate having you on today. Where can people get a hold of you? How can they find you? What's your website, your socials, things like that?
Yeah, well, if you Google us, which is a great way to find anything, at
Yep.
Denard or Denard Social Spirits, you can find us. We're on, the Instagrams and the Facebooks and just the regular interwebs. We also, you might find us sitting down at the Denard Cocktail Room on Lake Street
Yep.
at 100 Lake, and there's also some other pretty cool businesses in there and some more coming that you should come check out. And the Denard Foundation, if you want to meet us in person, you can come out. You could find the Denord Foundation online. We've got a website. You can sign up for updates and come
Yes.
out and check us out at Crew Denord. and listen to some authentic New Orleans music.
And maybe some rib crib later on down the road with the boys, the Montana
Maybe,
rib crib. Well,
maybe we'll see. We'll see.
yeah.
For now, it's boudin balls and crawfish etouffee, but maybe we'll
Yep.
get to rib
Perfect.
one day.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Chris. It was great having you on.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for having
Yep.
me.